In 2022, Factory Research created the virtual reality game Sword Art Online, triggering a frenzy of excitement. Players rushed to enter the game, and among them was the devoted fan, Copper Man. After the official launch of the game, Copper Man skillfully maneuvered through the crowds, attracting the attention of other players. However, the game encountered issues, and players fell into panic. Factory Research announced the game's true gameplay, revealing that if players died in the game, they would die in reality as well, and they had to defeat the boss on the 100th floor to escape. Female players revealed their true identities, and Factory Research disregarded the players' concerns and withdrew from the game. Copper Man realized this was not a lie and quickly leveled up, starting to solo monsters and level up. Driven by the fear of survival, Copper Man became a formidable force, swiftly defeating wolf monsters. Despite 2 months passing, no one managed to defeat the boss on the first floor. Even Copper Man couldn't find the boss room. Finally, someone organized the first strategy discussion meeting. Diabell's team discovered the boss room on the first floor, and in order to increase their chances of clearing it, he organized a meeting and invited some high-level players to discuss strategies. However, they had to form teams to participate in the raid. Copper Man, who had social anxiety, anxiously searched for teammates and luckily found Asuna. Just as he was about to relax, someone suddenly demanded an apology and compensation from the beta testers, accusing them of abandoning ordinary players. Fortunately, Egil, who was also an ordinary player, spoke up and refuted the claims, causing the self-proclaimed king of the players to back down. Diabell interrupted the argument among the group and recapped the basic information about the boss and the distribution of rewards. The next day, everyone set off on time, and Copper Man suddenly realized that Asuna had never teamed up before and didn't know anything that made him feel his life was in danger. Soon, the first floor boss appeared, and everyone attacked together, gradually depleting its health to its lowest state. Commander Diabell ordered everyone to stop their attacks and approach the boss alone. It turned out that he suspected the boss had Changeadite skills, and indeed, the boss switched weapons and instantly killed Diabell. Diabell sacrificed himself to test the boss for the remaining players and entrusted Copper Man to lead the rest of the players to clear the floor. True to everyone's expectations, Copper Man, despite being severely injured, cooperated with the other players and turned the tide, defeating the boss. Just as everyone was cheering, Yagamai suddenly accused Copper Man of being an alpha tester, knowing the information but not telling anyone in advance, which led to Diabell's death. Criticisms started to arise one after another within the team. Copper Man realized that if things continued like this, it would be certain death for both regular players and alpha testers due to mutual exclusion. Suddenly, Copper Man burst into laughter, wearing a mysterious expression, neither refuting nor explaining. He simply stated that he had reached the highest floor during the alpha test, then put on his midnight coat, disbanded the party, and left alone. For the next few months, Copper Man continued to level up on his own until around the 11th floor. By chance, he met the guild leader, Kirito, and was invited to join the guild. Supposedly, it was to mentor a young girl named Saki in her class change, but they ended up progressing all the way to the 23rd floor without her successfully changing classes. One day, Saki went missing. When Copper Man found her, she said she didn't want to play anymore, she wanted to die. Copper Man was filled with sweat and fear, but he reassured her not to be afraid, promising that as long as he was there, he would never let her die. However, the next day, when Kirito went to buy a new house with his accumulated wealth and the other team members were grinding in the labyrinth, they accidentally encountered a trap and tragically lost their lives. Copper Man broke his promise. He couldn't save Saki or anyone else. He was the only one who walked out of the room alive. When Kirito returned and learned that all his teammates had died, he was devastated and committed suicide. Copper Man plunged into deep self-blame, blaming himself for not being able to save Saki. When he received news of the Christmas event Monsters Resurrection, without hesitation, he decided to solo it. At the boss spawning location, Copper Man encountered Klein. Klein advised him to team up together, as soloing was too dangerous. They agreed that whoever dropped the item would keep it. However, Copper Man flatly refused. There was only one boss and one item, and he was unwilling to give up. He had even made up his mind to fight Klein if necessary. Suddenly, a third-party team appeared, causing Klein to voluntarily give up the resurrection item and let Copper Man go ahead while he stayed behind to buy time. In the midst of their conversation, a zombified Santa Claus leaped down from the sky in front of Copper Man. Drawing his sword, Copper Man charged towards the boss. While engaged in a fierce battle with the boss, Klein's team from the outside drove away the third-party group. Copper Man emerged from the teleportation portal with the resurrection item and tossed it to Klein. However, Klein discovered that the item could only revive within 10 seconds after death. Copper Man dropped the item and turned to leave, but Klein grabbed his clothes and urged him to keep going, no matter what he had experienced. After returning to the resting room, Copper Man suddenly received a message crystal from the deceased Saki. It revealed that she had anticipated not surviving until the end of the game. Despite Copper Man giving her hope during their time together, she knew that even if she hadn't been killed, she would have taken her own life due to the mental pressure she was under. Therefore, she wished for Copper Man not to feel guilty and to live a good life even after her death. Upon reading this, Copper Man burst into tears, but his emotions were also greatly restored by this message. Time passed by quickly, and it had been a long while. In the forest, a girl named Silka, accompanied by a dragon spirit, and the red-haired girl in her party had a disagreement over item distribution. Out of anger, Silka left the party with the little dragon. However, she encountered a group of baboon monsters, and despite fighting desperately, she couldn't escape. The little dragon sacrificed itself to protect her. Just when Silka was about to meet her end, a muscular man named Copper appeared out of nowhere and swiftly dispatched the baboons with 3 strikes. Seeing the girl holding the feather of the little dragon, Silka couldn't help but burst into tears. It seemed that Copperman was reminded of his own inability to save someone named Saki, and he told her about a boss on the 47th floor that dropped a resurrection item. He even threw a bunch of items at her and planned to take her to the 47th floor. Upon learning that Silka intended to search for the resurrection item, the red-haired woman smiled meaningfully and left. That night, Copper noticed someone eavesdropping on their conversation, but he decided not to chase after them, considering Silka's safety. Silka felt something stirring inside her. The next day, as they arrived on the 47th floor, Silka was caught off guard and ensnared by the tentacles of a man-eating flower monster. In a panic, she slashed the monster with her blade while still bound. After landing safely, she shyly glanced at Copper. He assured her that he hadn't seen anything. Along the way, Silka couldn't resist asking about Copperman's sister, but he fell silent for a moment, admitting guilt for sacrificing his sister's freedom and being unable to face her. As they continued their journey, Silka successfully obtained the resurrection item from a flower at the end. Copperman intended to take Silka back to the city to revive her small dragon, but before they could take a step, they were intercepted by the red-haired woman. It was evident that she wanted to take advantage of their situation. However, she didn't expect to encounter Copperman, the legendary strong player. The red-haired woman led her group of 8 or 9 people, brandishing their weapons, but Copperman remained unscathed. He revealed that he had accepted a mission from a player who was killed by the Titan's hand. His goal was to teleport this group of people to prison. Using a teleportation crystal, Copperman fulfilled the player's request. At the same time, he helped Silka revive her small dragon and, unexpectedly, won her heart. Copperman returned to the front lines and found that the strategy meeting was in full swing. Asuna had been promoted to vice captain. One time, Copperman took a nap under a shady tree in the city when Asuna happened to pass by and caught him in the act. Unexpectedly, Asuna ended up being persuaded by Copperman and slept for the entire afternoon. Copperman, being a gentleman, stayed by Asuna's side. When Asuna woke up, feeling embarrassed, she invited Copperman to have a meal together. However, before the dishes could be served, a piercing scream was heard from outside. They rushed out and discovered a male player dead on the city gate, but strangely, there were no PK victory marks above anyone else's head at the scene. The peculiar manner of the person's death caused panic among many players since even the safe zone was no longer safe. In order to prevent the panic from spreading, Asuna decided to collaborate with Copperman to uncover the murderer. They wasted no time and found the first eyewitness in the square, a female player named Yuriko. She revealed that she and the deceased player, Keynes, used to be good friends in the same guild. However, the guild disbanded due to certain reasons, and they had planned to meet for a meal together, never expecting such a tragedy to occur. Copperman sensed that Yuriko was hiding something. He escorted her back to her residence. Without wasting any time, they rushed to the weapon appraiser, Agar, with the sword used to kill Keynes. Agar identified the weapon as being crafted by a player named Grim. Armed with this information, they confronted Yuriko the next day and asked about Grim, the weapon's creator. This time, Yuriko revealed that she, the deceased, and Grim were all members of the Golden Apple Guild. The guild had dissolved due to internal conflicts, and Grim's wife was suspected of being killed by someone within the guild. Yuriko speculated that if the sword belonged to Grim, he must be seeking revenge for his wife. 6 months ago, only she, Keynes, and another member who had voted against the dissolution of the guild remained. Clearly, they had become targets for revenge. Yuriko proposed finding the third person involved, and it happened that Asuna knew that person was Hummat, the deputy commander of the neighboring Holy Dragon Knight Order. They found Hummat and explained the situation, but to their surprise, he showed extreme nervousness. Coincidentally, Yuriko suddenly became mentally unstable and shouted that the vengeful spirit of Green Temple had come to seek revenge. The next moment, they witnessed Yuriko being stabbed on the back, falling from the windowsill, and dying instantly, leaving behind only the dagger. With Yuriko's death, the case hit a dead end. As Copperman pondered the situation, Asuna handed him a handmade sandwich. In an accidental slip, Copperman dropped the sandwich, and the food instantly turned into blue fragments and disappeared. Copperman suddenly realized that the so-called death effect was actually just the equipment's durability being depleted and automatically disassembled. In reality, Keynes and Yuriko hadn't died at all. The whole act was designed to deceive Hummat. Asuna then opened Yuriko's friend locator and indeed found her moving on the 19th floor. The personal grudges of those individuals were not their concern. At that moment, Asuna asked Copperman a question. What would you do if a rare item dropped? As they delved deeper into the discussion, they discovered that in the past conflicts within the Golden Apple Guild, if Grims had died, her husband Grim would have been the biggest beneficiary. They immediately realized that Yuriko and the others were in imminent danger and hastily rode towards them. Sure enough, at Grim's grave, a notorious player with a red name, hired by the real culprit, was planning to kill the three of them to cover it up. Just in the nick of time, Copperman arrived and frightened off the red-named player. At the same time, Asuna found the real culprit, Grim, in the nearby forest. It turned out that the timid Grim, feeling insecure as his wife became more accomplished, resorted to hiring someone to commit murder, and the reason Grim agreed to have Yuriko bring this matter to light was to allow the red-named player to eliminate all three of them at once. With the truth of the murders within their circle uncovered, they watched as the three of them left, with Grim being restrained. After experiencing the internal murder case, the relationship between Copperman and Asuna gradually grew closer.